Unsyndicated presents What the Puck with Sean Baligian.
He's Mike. I'm Sean. Hi. Can you believe it, Mike? Seriously, we're only 1 month away from the start of the Stanley Cup playoff. Now, they haven't announced it yet, and you and I are going to be busy that particular day, as you well know, as it is. More on that in a second. But the season ends on Thursday, April 17th. And if you follow along, usually they'll play one group of teams that don't play on Thursday, the 17th, that Saturday. And then they have the next group start on Sunday. So we're only a month away from the start of the greatest playoff there is.
Oh yeah, and as they always say, the hardest trophy to win, the most prized trophy, the most celebrated trophy, the one, the only trophy that everybody wants to touch and kiss.
Really? I mean, yes, that's you and I, by the way, are going to be, for people out there that don't know, we're going to be at the Team Michigan games in Novi that afternoon. And so, Mike, I'll go out on a limb and say we'll probably just blow over the house and watch hockey that night, unless there's a certain team wearing blue blanc et rouge, and then nobody's allowed at my house that particular night. So
I know those rules.
Yeah, that I'm sorry, that's the rule. Those have always been the rules. But obviously, this is something that is near and dear to every hockey fan's heart. Mike, before we talk about we're going to start in an unusual place. This came up to me last night, and our buddy Hubie, who will probably be over for one of our watch parties, and David, I'll get to your stuff in just a second. We were talking about Stanley Cup favorites. And of course, Leaf fans said the Leafs, and I did one of these and they got mad at me. And a couple people said Florida. I'm still on the Florida train. A couple people said Tampa, things like that. Nobody ever says the team that isn't just leading the Eastern Conference, but is kind of running away with the Eastern Conference right now. Mike, I'm going to ask you point blank, especially after we just saw them, are people sleeping on the Washington Capitals?
It's a tough one because I was out last night and we had a very similar conversation, and it was, can they win more than one round? I think they're good enough there. But when you look at it, we've talked about them all year because we kind of made fun of them last year. Let's be honest, Sean. When we would talk about it, we'd say, how are they even around? They've got nothing. They don't play anything. They don't do anything. Boom, they come into this year and they're going strong. And it's the same team as last year. I mean, is Logan Thompson going to be that guy? He's got experience with Vegas. He's got Stanley Cup playoff experience. He's been there. He's been around it. So he has it. But until you're in it, do you really have the experience? But to say, are they sleeping on? Absolutely, people are sleeping on them because this is a good hockey team. But like you said, be it Toronto, Carolina, Florida, anybody but Washington is getting named in here, except for one guy who might have them at 40-1 odds, but that's another story.
And you went to the exact same place that I went to last night. I'm sorry when you're talking about Charlie Lindgren, who is fine in spots. I saw him as a hab. He's fine in spots. And when you're talking about Logan Thompson, pardon me if I don't do backflips come playoff time and say, ooh, my goodness gracious, they're going to carry this over. Somebody brought this up, and this is something that you'll remember, our generation will remember, but I think it was our buddy Ray from Ontario that chimed in yesterday and said, oh my gosh, is this Caps team like all those Brian Murray teams in the late 80s and early 90s that were wagons in the regular season and just routinely lost in the first round of the playoff? And I was like, you might, Rabbit, you might. Now, I'm not saying that whoever gets in, whether it be Ottawa or Montreal or Islanders or whoever is going to pull the upset. Mike, I'll I'll go on record. I just don't think the Caps are going to win 2 series. I really, truly don't.
And it's funny because that was the conversation last night. I said the same thing. I just pulled up the roster. You look at that roster. That is the same roster with the addition of a couple of like role guys in there that we made fun of last year when they were going to make the playoffs. And we're like, what do? They don't do anything. They run around. They keep the puck to the outside. Now they're scoring goals. Ovechkin on one leg has got 40. Wilson's got 30 goals. Logan Thompson is, 30-4 with a 2.29 and a 9.17. I don't know if any of those things I just said are sustainable through the playoffs.
They don't make sense.
No, but no. I do believe, Sean, that we will be able to reevaluate after watching them play a series of playoff hockey. Does that make sense?
Oh, no, 100%. And we're going to talk about the playoff race in just a second. And I'm not ready to tell you I told you so yet. And I think, Mike, you can join in that chant when we have that conversation. But we're very close to Mike and I telling I told you so. And if you've listened to me over the last few years, I told you this was going to take a lot longer than anybody thought for the Wings. But David said, could this be a preview of the Cup tonight, Toronto, Colorado? I'm glad he threw the LOL in there. Let's be perfectly honest. I'm glad that he threw the LOL in there. Wings got to win 11 of the next 14 games to get in. I don't see it after last night. Now, I will say I'm not ready to claim victory yet that they weren't going to be a playoff team this year. I took a lot of shit the last couple years, in particular, Mike, I think this year. And if I'm not mistaken, you were in the same boat as me. I didn't think that they'd be a playoff team this year. You didn't think that they'd be a playoff team. Now, again, I'm going to say both things can be true, and in my mind, they are. I think they're absolutely heading in the right direction. I don't think that this rebuild has gone as scheduled. I think it's behind. And I'm going to say the same thing that I've said for 3 years. The problem with this rebuild right now is there are multiple teams that are doing a similar rebuild, and quite frankly, they're doing it better. And that's not being a slapdick. That's not, taking shots. I like what the Wings have coming up. And I think next year you're going to see a really nice jump, honestly. But to David's point, Mike, this is where you and I can take a victory lap. The people that were underplaying the Red Wings schedule after the Four Nations, they're not laughing so hard anymore.
No, and that's when you get into winning 11 of the next 14 being real hard there. I think they have 5 games left that are winnable, which they have to win to prove it. And Sean, that's against the likes of your Habs, right? The Islanders and teams that are ahead of them. They did what they needed to do against Buffalo, and that was cute. You're not worse than Buffalo, I get it. But at best case scenario, they're 7-7 coming out of this. And that just gives Montreal and everybody ahead of them leeway to lose a couple more games. And 7-7 is being generous with what we saw last night in Washington.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Alan said, I want to get to this. I'm a hockey casual. I really don't get super into the Wings until about this time of year if we're making a playoff push. But if we have all these great prospects coming up, why not weaponize our draft capital to get some vets around the young guys? I'm not saying sell the farm, just get another DeBrincat or 2. Mike, that's a great. Do you want to go first? You go first. I have my thoughts on this. I go first.
Yeah, I think he's spot on. I mean, Alan, you are spot on with what they have to do. Obviously, this is a big summer. We mentioned this last week, I think. We will know a lot about this rebuild after the summer. If Mr. Yzerman has another summer like last year, where we come out with 4 backup goalies, 2 washed up defensemen, and a bunch of 4th line centers, we're done. It's over with. But if he can do that, and we know what he does like, Sean, and those are those top 10 prospects that he has, right? I do believe we're going to see Augustine probably in Grand Rapids really soon. Getting himself ready for the season. We might see Axel come over from Sweden, some guys come over from Sweden and see some of the young guys go. Those guys are solid. He's not going to do anything there, but he does have to get rid of maybe a contract or two, eat it, do whatever they need to do. But he does need a couple of guys to come in that are already proven.
I am going to go out on a limb. I think he's at the point in time now where, and I agree with what Alan said. I agree with you, what you said, but I'll add this as a caveat. I think he's at the point now where he and his scouting staff have been able to look at what they have, not only here, but what is yet to come. And they probably decided, Mike, out of the 4 or 5 names that everybody is throwing around, okay, I bet you they've decided out of the 4 or 5 names which 3 or 4 they're going to keep. And they have a circle around 1 or 2. And that 1 or 2, a young player, might be the piece that you use to go get that veteran, and maybe a trade deadline deal, maybe even a deal in the summertime. But if I were a betting man, okay, and I'm not, he is, Mike is, I'm not. If I were a betting man, I think we're at that point in time in the rebuild where you are not conceivably going to be able to keep all of these guys. And I think the same thing can be probably said in Montreal and maybe Ottawa, where, okay, we've got this surplus now. We've done a really good job of stocking the cupboards, but we're not going to be able to keep all these guys. And certainly you can't lock them up all long term. So you decide which guys we're going to keep, which guys we're going to go to war with for the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years, and which guys we might be able to flip for the type of veteran that he's talking about. I wouldn't be surprised. I think we're on the precipice of that.
I couldn't agree more. There's just one thing you said that should scare every Red Wing fan, and that is Steve Yzerman going over this and who they keep with his scouting staff. That is a scary, scary thought. Looking at what we have brought in to date and that scouting staff, I'm not sold on it. However, it is what it is. He's going to war with the guys that he brought, and you're absolutely right. You can't, of your top 10, you can't have all 10 of those guys, roster them, contract them, and be under the cap. You just can't do it. So someone's going to have to bring in something. So maybe this summer, maybe trade deadline next year when they get some experience, but absolutely.
Ray, old buddy. What's up, Ray? The Wings take no risks, and through free agency, they do a lot of let's throw it against the wall and hope it sticks method. Wings are at least 2-3 seasons away from even getting a playoff spot. I won't go that far with the latter part, but I think the beginning of it is right. And Mike, I'll say it again. I was stunned, as we all were in one of our text groups when last July 1, they made that announcement for Tarasenko. It was like that meme, where the guy's kind of making faces and everything. I think we were all kind of like that. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? And that's it. But I understand the frustration. I do. I don't think I'm not going to go as far as to say that they're 2-3 seasons away from getting a playoff spot, though. I won't go that far.
No, and I think the guy behind him at the bench, McClellan, is going to be the reason of that. You look at who is this team? Is this team who they were before McClellan took the bench or after? And I think it's more likely after. And where would we be if they would have? We look at the Tarasenko signing, and we also look at the bringing back of the loan over the summer that we thought he'd be gone, or at least I thought he'd be gone. That's going to be a huge difference taking a whole year with Tom McClellan behind the bench too next year.
The games they gave up after Four Nations, winning by 2 versus Ducks and Wild and others costing them, but that's hockey. Spot on by both of you. Has to be a big summer. Todd, you fixed the playoff bitches drop? I can't wait to hear this. That's it. It's over, bitches. Does Yzerman survive another offseason? Without a shadow of doubt, he is. I would go as far as to say, and I know some of you are going to laugh at me for saying this, he is the safest of the general managers in town. And I say that knowing that blood courses through the veins of Brad Holmes. But I hope you understand the point of what I'm saying. He is 1,000% safe. 1,000% safe. Now, right now, today, yes. If we're having this conversation and they've fallen way back of the pack a year from now, Mike, I'm going to be intrigued. I honestly, I'm going to really be, if we're having this conversation again next year, except they're way back in the pack, because there's a glimmer of hope right now. I'm going to ask you to put a percentage on it. I hate to put you on the spot, pal, but I'm going to ask you to put a percentage on it. There's a glimmer of hope now. If a year from now, if we're sitting here March 19th, 2026, and the Red Wings are like 15 points out, and you've seen all this young talent come up, and they're really struggling, I think at that point, maybe it starts to heat up a little bit. But right now, Bill, honestly, I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, 1,000% safe right now. 1,000% safe. Mike, here's a good question. I'm like, Bill, what do you make of Bedard's sophomore slump?
I think that's a really bad team. I mean, that's a really bad team.
No, really, I kind of feel here's a kid that's, I mean, he's 19, and I wouldn't worry about it. You know what? Let me pull this up. You've got Donato, Foligno, Bertuzzi, Teravainen. It's a bad team. It's a bad team. Alan, I'll speak for the fellow hockey casuals and say if we don't make the playoffs for 2 or 3 years, the Jared Goff chants will be replaced with Fire Yzerman chants. A lot of the people I talk to are already fed up. Now, I think people were fed up 2 years ago. I remember talking to people 2 years ago. I was doing that other hockey show, and I have to keep saying this. I'm not doing my job. And I've been accused of being a homer and an apologist for Steve Yzerman. I had 2 current National Hockey League general managers tell me to my face. And by the way, let me say for the record, neither one of them were named Steve Yzerman. I had 2 current National Hockey League general managers tell me in the last 3 years that people don't get it. If you're going to go about a rebuild, okay, you're talking 5 years just to get back to respectable. Not compete for cups, just to get back to respectable. And I know people don't want to hear that, but when your starting point is bare bones as Steve Yzerman's starting point was, Mike, and I think you'll agree with me there, we didn't have anything here. I mean, there weren't quote unquote prospects. They were saddled with bad contracts. His starting point was bad. Now, hold on. Before you yell at me, I'll be the first to, and I bet Steve would be the second to, say they are behind in this process. They are behind in this process because the 5-year clock ran out at the start of this year. They are clearly behind the 8 ball now, Mike.
Yeah, they're behind it, but again, looking at the prospects that we have, it's been a while since we've had a pile like this. We're talking about not just restocking Grand Rapids, which was what we usually did, is that we got guys that can play at the next level. I think what a lot of fans have to get used to, if they're not already used to, is Detroit's not a landing spot. You're not getting those guys. They are not coming here. They are going, they're going to choose the places that have tax deductions or they have the taxes, Dallas, Vegas, Florida, Nashville, and places like that where they get more money on their contracts. Detroit's just not attractive. So it's going to be tough to get guys there like what he's done through the draft. But yeah, he had a tough haul. We still got a couple contracts here and there, but the young talent's something to be excited about.
Love that you guys are talking a lot. We'll get back to your questions in a second. First, let me tell you about Legacy Partners, big hockey fans. Let's start with that. And did you know that thousands of Metro Detroiters have already called Legacy Partners to get help with their home and auto insurance? Our friends at Legacy are one of Southeast Michigan's top independent insurance agents. They provide a full-service, one-stop solution for all of your insurance needs, personal and business, large and small. Legacy has helped our listeners by fixing mistakes other agents have made, asking the right questions to get the right coverage put in place to properly protect you. And don't we all want to save some money right about now? Chances are, if you haven't checked your policies in the last year, you're paying too much and you could be underinsured. What are you waiting for? Do what my family did and many, many other families have done in our area. Give Legacy Partners a chance to help with your home, your cars, life insurance, Medicare enrollment, or your business insurance needs. Call them today, 586-209-4106, or visit legacypartnersins.com to get started with your new quotes. This made me laugh out loud. Why does McClellan always look like a disheveled drunkard? He reminds me of Dennis Hopper in Hoosiers.
That is so spot on. That is so spot on.
Here's the funniest thing, okay? He looks that way, and I know he comes across as just Captain Redass. Dude is so nice, it's insane. He is so nice. He's just a good dude. He's a good dude. Here's our boy, Hubie. Hubie, I brought this up last night, and so you're just joining us. I'll bring it up again with Mike here. Mike, I asked Sean last night, who are your Cup favorites? I say Av Stars, probably Vegas. East, can Florida keep it going or run out of gas? Nobody in the East has their faults. Need to see the Jets prove something. Can the Caps, who are having career years, keep it going in the playoffs? We talked about the Caps earlier. I think it's fool's gold. I don't think they win 2 series. Mike, I'm going to stick with what I said at the beginning of the year. I said Florida and Dallas, and I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah, and again, I'll keep going back to Washington, and we looked at them early in the year. I took them at 40-1 odds. I think this coach has got something special. He's got these guys playing. Looking at what they have, I don't know how sustainable it is. When I'm looking at the East, I think the East comes through Florida, be it the Panthers or be it the Lightning. Just watch out for the Lightning and the way they're playing on the backside in Vasilevsky. They've played a lot of hockey, but they're there, Sean, and they're always there. And in Cooper, we trust. Out of the West, I like Dallas, but just like Winnipeg, I don't know what Hellebuyck is going to give me. I don't know what Ottinger is going to give me in the playoffs. One of the 2 goalies that have a cup, Hill, playing for Vegas. I like Vegas. And where did all of a sudden Edmonton go? Edmonton is this team that shocked everybody last year, and I think they're going to carry that experience. And if I had to, I like Edmonton or Vegas out of the West.
I love Pete DeBoer. I work for Pete DeBoer. I know Pete DeBoer, but Pete DeBoer is one of those coaches right now, too. I bet Pete would admit it to you. Like, okay, Pete, you've had a ton of success in the regular season. Are you ever going to make it translate come playoff time? And that, yes, absolutely, positively, that's a question, man. There's no – Tampa's amazing. I brought this up last night, Mike. For 2 years now, they just meander through the regular season, and you're thinking, okay, this is it. This is the beginning of the end. And then there they are. They're just Tampa. Honestly, it's amazing. Hey, if you're ready to take charge of your financial future, look no further than the Wealth Advantage Group, located in historic downtown Northville and owned by those 2 handsome fellows right there. 2 brothers with over 20 years of industry experience. They understand that your financial goals are as unique as you are, and that's why they offer personalized expert guidance to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning. Now, whether you're saving for retirement, you're getting ready to sell your company, you're already in retirement, doesn't matter. These guys can and will help guide you through every step of whatever your particular financial journey is. They work with clients throughout all stages of life, and they have clients in over 20 different states. The investment world is a complex one. So if you're ready to start taking your finances more seriously, it might be time to work with the experts. Reach out to my guys right there. That's Mike Husak on the left, Jeff Husak on the right. the Wealth Advantage Group at 248-773-8574, or check out their website at www.thewealthadv.com. Go Habs, go. Oh gosh, I'm trying really hard. Hey, listen, true story. He can tell you this. He had more faith in them than I did. He did. He really, he did. He did. I will say again, the conversation we had before the show started, who do I think wins the Calder? Who do I think wins the Rookie of the Year? I think it'll be Celebrini. I think it should be, without a shadow of a doubt, Lane Hudson. He's every time you watch him, there's something magical. And this is one time I can say, I hate to tell you, I told you so, but this is a guy I've been talking about for 2 years. In fact, we were talking about last year. This kid is just fun. And I think, Mike, as much as we've evolved in talent evaluations and not shunning smaller guys, I still think we've got some work to do. How that kid lasted as long as he did into the draft is a crying shame. He is one of the poster children for what the National Hockey League wants out of a defenseman now in the NHL. And there aren't many of them, but he's definitely one of them.
It's the NHL. I don't think they ever get away from size, but what they have to wake up to is the Quinn Hughes, the Lane Hudson, the skating ability. And if you can skate, I don't care your size, you can play in this league and you're going to be good. Skating is everything.
Mm-hmm. If you guys had to pick today, you guys are putting us on the spot. Okay. If you guys had to pick today, who would you go with to win the cup? Mike, death not an option. I'll play. Bill, I'm going to play. You get one team, Mike. I'm going to let you pick first. I will pick differently from whoever. I think you know who I'm going to pick, but I will pick differently from whoever you pick.
I'll go with the Oilers. I just liked what they did last year.
Do you have money on them?
I do not. My money is on the Kings and Washington. I got them both at 40-1.
I'm going to go with Florida.
Yeah.
Sorry, I am. I'm going to go with Florida. I think they got the boost that they needed with Marchand. Whatever Marchand has left in the tank, I think he's going to use it this year. I really, truly do. So I'm going to go with. We had bad contracts. Eric, yo, Mike and Sean, yo, Eric. Yzerman has drafted well. It's the league talent scouting that has been bad. I believe Draper runs that department. Steve may have to come to terms that his buddy and right-hand man for many years may not be cutting it in his position. There's two ways to look at this, and I'm not going to argue with the results, okay? Do you know what I tend to believe, though? I tend to believe they purposely haven't tried to make a big splash yet. If my understanding is correct, they wanted to make a big splash last summer, and they were basically told they can't make the big splash that they wanted to make. So it kind of left, and I think you guys know what I'm talking about. So it kind of left them hamstrung. I don't think that they've, in all honesty, I'm not going to argue with the results. Nobody can. I don't think that they've made that concerted effort yet. Does that make sense, Mike?
It makes absolute sense. And it's, you have to be methodical and purposeful with what you're doing. And I've even said this about watching the contracts, be it Mo and be it Raymond, and the contracts that are going to be coming up with these entry-level guys coming, is everything is predicating on one guy, Sean. And you know who this is. He's in East Lansing right now. He's getting ready for the Big Ten championship game on Saturday. And so you have to wait. You can't blow your contract and your control over contracts until that happens. They're going to wait. They're going to go. They're going to get him some experience, and then you're going to start seeing. You won't know when it's going to happen, but there will be signs, and you'll see it coming.
I have very, very strong reason to believe that they thought that they were going to make a really hard push for Steven Stamkos and eventually end up with Steven Stamkos. And I think somebody didn't want to spend that much. Just I have reason to believe that. And for the record, anybody know what Stamkos is doing down in Nashville right now? Listen, Tampa looks pretty smart, Mike. Let's be honest. Tampa looks pretty smart right now. He really
Absolutely.
isn't he like 42 points or you know what? Hold on. Talk amongst yourselves.
Let's pull this up.
67 games, 22 goals, 21 assists, 43 points, minus 22.
Defense is the crux in there, down there in Nashville. And again, there's sometimes you may want to take a splash and you may not like that you're told no, but that was a good one there. That was a good miss there.
Pro scouting, the problem, it seems like a majority Austin meet Allen meet Austin. Pro scouting, the problem, it seems like a majority of the free agents and trades have been duds outside of Kane and DeBrincat. Again, I'm of the opinion, this is an opinion. I'm not saying something I know. I don't think that there's been a concerted effort while they're in the process of developing all these young players. So they figure out which young players are going to be big pieces of the puzzle and which players are going to be pawned off. I don't know what Draper's doing now, by the way, to go back to that. I know that he was scouting like mad all up and down the 401 because he told me. Like, I know that for a fact. Like, he told me with his own mouth because we were talking about back when I was working for the Whalers, like you get to know every one of those rest areas along the 401. You really, it's kind of fun. You get to know every one of them. So that's the way it goes. Mike breaking down NHL city tax breaks is goated. That's outstanding. That's good.
It's huge.
Yeah. I'm hoping Casper can turn it up big time next year. We need a big step up, no doubt. Outside of Cat and Kane, who has really wowed you as a free agent or trade? Nothing. The Tarasenko made my jaw drop. Like, we were really, that is the move, a team who, much like Florida last year, we were talking about it at trade deadline. I loved that move for Florida because you're asking a guy to go be a big body and chip in when he can on a team that's already a wagon. You're basically telling him, we know that you're not what you were even 3-4 years earlier. So just go be this on our third and fourth line and be a big body. That one made no sense to me. I will pat myself on the back. I loved the Kane signing from second one because, Mike, there was no risk involved in that. There was no risk involved in that. He still has his shortcomings. He still decides when he wants to play defense. Make no mistake about that. But if it didn't work, you know what you do? You throw your hands up and you go, oh, well, it didn't work. Like, what are you missing out on? You know what I mean? It wasn't a big number. It wasn't a, oh my gosh, this is going to break us. This is going to send us into a tailspin. But I can't argue with what Allen or Austin said. Mike, I firmly believe it's by design. I really, truly, I believe it's by design.
And we should have confidence that when the time comes, these guys really know how to sign third and fourth line role players that at some point we're going to need, right? We've done a ton of that. We've signed guys like we're already there, and that's part of the problem. And I agree with your take on Kane. 1-year contracts are never going to kill anybody. That doesn't eat anything up.
Who in the NHL today would you want to have the puck on his stick if you're down a goal with a chance to tie the game? McDavid. That was easy.
Yeah,
that was easy.
I mean, if we're gonna go off of the McDavid, I mean, right now, Draisaitl. I mean, yeah. I think this was the first in 15 games they didn't have a point the other night, and he seems to be leading in the MVP race.
All right, Ray, you ready for me to go slapdick? Are you asking for a defender? Give me Lane Hudson, baby. I want the puck on the 20-year-old rookie stick. How's that? I made Sean a make appearance. What? I'm sorry, I can't. Did you guys see the OHL Centennial teams that they released? Who's the best junior player you ever saw? Oh, you're in my wheelhouse now.
This is all you, buddy.
You're in my wheelhouse now. Watching Sidney Crosby in that 04-05 year, especially at It was the Labatt Center at the time in the Memorial Cup. That was not a good team, not at all. And the fact that he got them to the Memorial Cup and against that wagon London night team, the Corey Perry squad, I told anybody that would listen, and I had somebody, a writer in town, actually bring this up to me a few weeks ago. I told anybody that would listen, sometimes guys get overhyped. You're not overhyping Sidney Crosby. And I feel that exact same way 20 years later. In fact, I'll go a step further. And Mike, I know you agree with me. I don't think Sidney Crosby gets the respect he deserves. I don't.
Absolutely. And at the end of this year, he's actually going to break one of Gretzky's records that no one's talking about. Is he's going to be on his 20th straight point per game season. 20 straight years getting a point per game. Are you kidding me? I mean, you know my feeling on this guy.
They're the early in my, and then, for every guy like that. Now, granted, you got to remember, he played in the Q, so I only saw him a few times. But in the, I don't know, 14, I forget how many years it was, 14 years I was in the OHL. For every Crosby or McDavid or Tavares, there are guys like Corey Locke. Have you ever heard of Corey Locke? Nobody has, right? Unless you're a diehard OHL fan. And I want to make sure that was his name. I think it was Corey Locke, who played for the 67s, who was an absolute machine. An absolute, now I have to look it up just to double check myself. But in one of the early years that I played, he was one of those guys that every scout said, okay, this guy's never going to make it. He's never going to make it. But he was an absolute machine, Mike. He was so fun to watch. And I just remember, like, one year in particular, I want to say like he had like 178 points or some silly thing like that. It really was one of those things. But if I'm not mistaken, it was Corey Locke. Was that his name? Can you even, one of you guys fact check me? Todd, can you even fact check me? I'll do it right now. But Mike, there are a lot of guys like that where you for whatever reason, you just sit back. It was Corey Locke, and now I'm going to look up his numbers. I'm going to bore you all right now, okay? He in 03, he had 63 goals, 88 assists, and 151 points.
Is that any good?
He played a total of 9 games in the National Hockey League. Yep. He was 5'9" and $168. He was, every time I saw him, he was unbelievable. You kind of set your watching. All right, he's going to get 2-3 points tonight. He was insane. So as crazy as it sounds, I put a guy like that up. Corey Perry was like that too. Corey Perry's last year in London, Mike, he had so much talent around him. It was insane. Like every night you just knew he was going to put up 2 or 3 points. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I said, I leave that question to you, but Corey Perry would have been easily my answer. And what I have to say, if anybody ever gets a chance to ever sit down with Mr. Baligian and you think you want to ask him about the Habs and it's going to be entertaining, get this guy talking about the OHL, and the stories that he can tell are just unbelievable and legendary, of the kids and the talent that he saw that made it, or like a Corey Locke didn't make it. But it's great stories.
Mike, I don't hesitate to say it. It's the best league. It is. And it's not the same today. It's not. And I'm not sounding like the old timer. It's not. I ran into a guy over the weekend who was a longtime official in the OHL, and that's the first thing he said to me, because he goes, "Do you miss it?" And I go, "Every day of my life." Like, I'm serious, every day of my life. And he said, well, you know what? It's a lot different than it was, going back 20 years ago and even 10 years ago when you were doing games and everything. And it's the best. I think it's the best hockey. Austin, I don't think you're crazy for this. I like this team. I do. Am I crazy for thinking Ottawa might make a run? No, I don't think so. No, I don't. Okay, so I've whispered this a few times, Mike. I don't know if I've said this to you. I said it on Woodward the other day. Half the problem with the Red Wings right now is, A, they're behind, so that's half the problem, and B, there are multiple teams in their own division who are doing rebuilds better.
Yeah.
and Montreal and Ottawa are two of them. And this is where I'm going to be a slapdick. Montreal's doing it a lot better because you got to remember they started almost 3 years after the Red Wings. By the way, shortly after they made a Stanley Cup run, as crazy as it was. So that's where Austin, I like that Ottawa team. I really do. I like that Ottawa team.
Yeah, that's a team that it looks like they're built for the playoffs. And I keep saying if Allmark makes saves, a guy with experience, they're going to be trouble for someone in that first round.
Yep. I think that's absolutely fair. Are you guys having a show for the tourney? I will Thursday, Eric. I will. Todd, if that works for you, maybe at 8:00 tomorrow. I'll do something 8:00 before Michigan plays. Panthers will be tough. They are my pick in the East. Swan, I'm with you. I still like the Panthers. I do. I think they're a throwback. Is the goalie who the Hawks acquired from the Panthers their goalie of the future? He was a high draft pick. I think so. Mike, do you agree? I
agree. He has to be. I mean, that's what they did. They went and got him. Now, whether he pans out or not, but that is their plans for him, is to be the goalie of the future for sure.
Cornstalker, I wouldn't be too surprised if the Kings make a run. Vegas had trouble with them all season. Maybe they can figure out Edmonton this time. Mike, that's been your team for a good year now. Yes. You've been on the Kings bandwagon, baby. You really have.
I like the way they play. And again, there's
score. I think their defense score is unbelievable.
And there's two goalies in the West. One of them's Adin Hill in Vegas that have won a cup. And the other is in LA with Darcy Kemper.
Bill, what is the worst professional hockey venue that you guys have ever visited? Mine's easy. One doesn't really exist anymore. Well, I guess both of them don't really exist when I think about it, but mine's easy. Mike, do you have one?
The LA Forum.
Terrible.
Terrible.
Tropicana Field. It was a shithole 30 years ago. And I'm not being funny. I was there, Bill, you'll appreciate this. I was there for the Spartans' first Final Four under Coach Izzo, and it was a shithole in 1999. I am not being funny. And then fast forward about 15 years later, we went to a baseball game there, and it was an even greater shithole. And Mike, I know I've told you this. Stade Olympique, where the Expos played, was... I can't believe that somebody built that and thought it was a good idea. I'll just leave it at that. It was like, hey man, wow, we made this giant cathedral, an ode to the Olympics. It was awful. So if I had to pick one, I would go Tropicana Field. Just a shithole, an absolute shithole. And yeah, Habs are starting to gel. Look out for the future. Don't see, Chris, I tried to keep it under control. I have been walking around with full mahogany for a while now. And Mike, I'm going to say it again. Mike is the one who has been telling me for a few weeks I'm being too hard, and I'm the guy that I detest, who's thinking with emotion and everything. Mike, as you pointed out, for as many times as we said, the Red Wings schedule might be their undoing. You would also include, hey, the Habs schedule isn't exactly that damaging. And you're not wrong, but the crazy thing right now about this heater that they're on is they're beating everybody. They're doing it, Mike. Like when they shut out the Hurricanes, they dominated that game. And they beat the Senators twice. They never beat the Senators. Me and my big mouth, Mike wanted to bet on them, and I said, no, the Habs never beat the Senators. They went out, they beat the Panthers the other night, they beat the Senators last night. They look really good, but here's the reminder, Mike. This is what young teams do. 2 months ago, they looked like they might never lose again, and then all of a sudden Detroit got hot, and it looked like they might never lose again. You see young teams do this all the time.
And you know that if they put too much faith in a certain goalie, they're going to struggle. But hey, you got to like what you see.
Swan said, I like Vegas in a very competitive West. I won't argue with that. I went with Dallas, but I won't. Vegas is almost like, to me, Mike, Vegas is almost a little bit like the Caps. Like Why aren't more people talking about Vegas? We probably should be talking more about Vegas than we are.
Oh, yeah. They're not that far removed.
David said, could the Wings deal Kosa for something? Yes. Absolutely. They're going to have to. Nobody keeps two quote-unquote goaltenders of the future. Nobody. It doesn't happen. I think Kosa will play the role of Ben Bishop. He might be the guy for a couple years. And then Vasilevsky, his role will be played by Augustine, and they'll see what they can get for Kosa. But no, you don't keep two guys like that. You just don't. You don't. And I think this is, again, why, Mike, I say the Habs are a little bit ahead, because they have Montembeault, who I'm still going to call him Montembeault. Now I can't change because he's played really, really well, so I have to keep calling him Montembeault. But you brought up one of your quote-unquote goaltenders of the future in Dobish, and you still have Fowler waiting in the wings as well. So, in that regard, they're a little bit ahead. But you're absolutely right. That's David. Teams don't do that. You don't have two a 1A and 1B. You don't do that. Mike, never, ever, ever. You don't do that.
No, and if there's one thing we know that Steve can do, it's fleece another GM. If they can get Kosa again some experience, which we do believe is coming in that Ben Bishop role, if he stays true to his Tampa ties there, that he's got to get him some experience, and then we'll know he will fleece somebody and get something for him.
I think I have a couple reads to do. We are so far behind. I appreciate all your comments. Hey, when it comes time to get yourself a house, whether you're buying or selling, you need to contact the right agent. Who do we recommend? Alakazam. I present Lindsay Broadwell to you. There she is. Your house is probably the biggest investment you'll ever make, and that's why you need a pro. Lindsay grew up on the main streets of Northville and has expanded her team all over Southeast Michigan. She's an expert in all facets of the business. When it's time to move, our friend Lindsay and her team will make sure you get the most out of your house and everything goes smoothly when finding your new home. Buyer, seller, even first-time buyer. Make sure you contact Lindsay at BroadwellHomes.com. She'll help you with everything from start to close. Licensed realtor at Real Broker LLC. Start your search today at BroadwellHomes.com. Let's see. If the Wings are out in the last 5 games, will you see Sebastian up and playing? Yes, I believe that. Yes. There's no reason not to. Mike, would you agree with me?
It has to. It has to. It's the talk anytime I seem to be around the guys talking about the Wings is, when are we going to see Kosa?
Yep. The Lions used the Patriots way and found out it didn't work in Detroit. Should Yzerman realize that what worked in Tampa won't work in Detroit? I think it hasn't worked in Detroit so far for 2 reasons. Victor Hedman and Steven Stamkos. I would love to take over a rebuild job and have a not ready for primetime Victor Hedman and a not ready for primetime Steven Stamkos waiting there. He didn't have anything like that here. If you follow junior hockey, and I know a guy like you does, Ray, there's a lot of talent there. Now, again, I'm not writing checks for a Stanley Cup anytime soon. I'm not, okay? Mike, I'm not, all right? Nope. But I think at the very least, as frustrated as people are, and you deserve to be, you can at least see there's a lot of pieces there right now, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you go back to the beginning of the year, Sean, we had this conversation, and I did the whole breakdown of Yzerman's stay in Tampa from when he got Cooper with Hedman and Stamkos. When you get McClellan, again, I'm not comparing guys, Raymond, Sider, he's got those guys. That's who that's going to be with Trey Augustine coming. That was, I think it was 3 to 5 years before they won that cup, Sean. And I asked in the middle of the beginning of the year here was, are you guys ready for another 3 to 5 years? Because that's what we're looking at right now. When you're talking about bringing in a goalie like Augustine and having him in Grand Rapids possibly after an NCAA tournament this year, you're 3 years away. Yep. From that hitting. So that puts you about 5 years from being a serious contender if all these guys hit.
Eric said Robert Lang, most underrated wing.
Hey, Babs.
I said you nailed it. Robert Lang and Mike Babcock will be intertwined for the rest of my days. Their relationship was so bad. I don't have any problem saying it. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. I'm not going to tell you who told me. Their relationship was so bad at the end of that 07 season that whenever Mike Babcock would say something to Bobby Lang, he would turn around and look at him and go, "Bleep you, Babs." That was the only thing he'd say to him. Didn't matter. "Hey, Bobby, did you have a nice weekend?" "Bleep you, Babs." That's how bad the relationship was. It was kind of funny. Swan said Yzerman tight with Mrs. I and Chris. He is here to stay. I still support Steve. I do too. I'm with you. He isn't going anywhere. If this falls apart in the next year, I can't gaze in the future. By the way, I don't expect it to. But if this falls apart in the next year, I don't know what the future holds. But right now, I'll say again, he might be the safest general manager in town. It's insane. Did you see that crazy stat that Crosby jumped Gretzky to number 4 scoring for one franchise, and yet he's still in Pittsburgh's list behind Mario? That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Hunter, he's like Rain Man. Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's Mike. Mike loves to do that, don't you, Mike? Corey Locke's meteoric rise got sideswiped Roy Hobbs style. He was unbelievable. I'm telling you, he was. I just remember seeing him multiple times. He was so much fun to watch. My playoff win is seeing the Leafs lose in the first round. You might get it. My formula: 4 lines that can score, physical goaltending, physical smart D. Ottawa fits the formula more than Toronto, Tampa Bay, Jersey. I'm on the Sens bandwagon. You know what was really odd last night? Can I tell you after watching that game? I don't know if you saw it, Austin, Mike. I don't know if you saw it. I watched the Habs take it to Ottawa in the third period. I was like, I'm not just talking the scoreboard. I'm talking about they took the game to Ottawa, and it was like, looking around. It was pretty cool to see. Checker Dome in St. Louis was a dump. The St. Louis Arena. I've heard
Purina, right?
I've never been there. Mike, were you there? I never went there. No, I never went there, but I heard that from many people. If you do an NHL playoff pool of players, which team would you be loading up on? I still say Florida. Right? I still say Florida. And you'd look pretty good with Edmonton.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Habs with Demidov, Caulfield, and Hudson in a few years. I might put some blue tape across my Wings jersey. Austin, your shit. There's a lot of, Mike, I think I told you this, and you can read up on it. There's a lot of speculation that his team, St. Petersburg, is going to play hardball and not allow him to go over to the NHL. I'll tell you another name. Seriously, Reinbacher, the kid that they took the year before him, and everybody lost their mind. He's a fucking stud. He really is. He is the Mo Sider of that defense, if that makes sense, Mike. And I had this conversation the other day. Did I tell you about this with some of the guys at Woodward? I had this conversation. Okay, so Mo wins the Norris Trophy, right? And in typical Red Wing fashion around here, people started saying, well, he's going to go win multiple Norris trophies, which I shook my head and I said, I don't think he's that type of player. I don't. I want him on my team, but I don't think he's a quote unquote Norris guy, if that makes sense. So of course they went right to, I can't believe you're dogging him if he was a Hab. And I was like, at what point in time did I dog him? I'm not saying he doesn't check the boxes. I'm saying he doesn't check the boxes for a Norris Trophy guy, but I'll take Mo Sider. And that's kind of the way I think Reinbacher is. I'm not sure he checks the boxes for a Norris Trophy. I think that would go to ASP for the Wings, and certainly Lane Hudson for the Habs. But I think that's their answer to the Wings' Mo Sider. Does that make sense?
100%. It's the Lidstrom Konstantinov argument that me and you talk about a lot. If he would have never gotten in the accident, he would have. How many would he have? None. He wasn't that player. He wasn't even that player on his team, let alone in the league.
Hunter said Omni in Atlanta. Bill said, what are goalies scouted for? Is there any way to measure their fast twitch? Oh my goodness. One of the most fascinating things, Mike, is to hear scouts talk about goalies. I love that. Like honest to goodness. I love it. Let's see. What the hell is that Nordiques logo on Mike's hat? It looks like a mailbox wielding a hockey stick, right? Yeah, that's exactly it. What would a Marner signing in Detroit do to our division? Just dreaming. I could see Larkin saying, if you sign him, I don't need to be the highest paid wing. Marner has some questions. I was talking to Ray about this last night. Mitch Marner wants to shut some people up. Like some of the guys we were talking about, Mike, he might want to mix in a good playoff. Or at least a non-embarrassing playoff. How's that?
I mean, he's been put to shame by now Nylander. I mean, in the playoffs, and the guy makes half his salary. I mean, what are you going to do? You're absolutely correct on that. You got to show up in the playoffs.
Austin gets it. Cale Makar should win the Norris Trophy every year. They just have to let other guys win it so it seems fair. That's what they want out of a Norris Trophy guy. Yeah. You nailed it. That's what they want. Which MSU team has a better chance to win the NCAA title? Hockey team or basketball team? Hockey team. And that's no disrespect to the basketball team. The hockey team, in my mind, Mike, is the favorite in college hockey. The favorite. Whereas Michigan State basketball is a 2 seed. And I think Coach Izzo's got a great chance, and I wish him all the luck in the world. But look, Michigan State's the number 1 team in the nation, and I think in a lot of people's minds, the team to beat, if that makes sense, you know?
You hit it right on the head.
Yeah. What happens if you had to pick? Augustine wins Hopi Baker or MSU wins NCAA title? Well, it depends who you're talking to. I'm a Michigan State fan, so I want another national championship. I saw one in 86. I saw one in 07. I'd like another one in 25. Thank you. I really would. Hey, All About Catering LLC is a full-service caterer. Graduations, weddings, bridal showers, corporate events, anything you need catering for from 25 to 4,000 people. All About Catering can and will take care of you. Customer service and satisfaction is their number 1 goal. Maybe you're having a playoff party and you don't have 71 smokers like Mike and I like to use. So why don't you call Rick and his gang? Don't sweat your next big event. Just go to allaboutcateringllc.com to see their menus and all their 5-star reviews. Give them a call, 586-731-1398 to get your event started. But Mike and I like to do all the cooking. Well, Mike, we're going to have a busy day that day. We're going to have to try to figure out a month from now. So we got the broadcast for Team Michigan in the afternoon. Maybe you come over early. We put a bunch of shit on the smoker before we go over to Novi. And then when we're done at Novi, we can come back and then we can eat.
Well, if there's one thing we're good is at the timing of the meat, and I think so. And we know we'll have plenty of sausage to fire on right when we get there in case it's not ready, so we can just eat it right off the grill.
I love Sausage Fest. I absolutely love. Chris had thoughts on MSU and the Toledo Regional. That'll be awesome. Are you kidding me? And that's a beautiful venue. I've been fortunate enough to do some games down there for the Walleye, and that's a great venue down there. Mike, any last thoughts before we get the bleep out of here?
No, except for on the Michigan State. How do they have Michigan and Michigan State both playing at 10 o'clock? You know who's going to be in bed. I'm not going to see 1 second of either of those games. But on the hockey front, no. I mean, it's going to be a tough role for the Wings to do something, but hopefully they can make a little steam.
What's your percentage that the Red Wings make the playoff? Put it at a percentage.
This year?
That's it. It's over, bitches.
I mean, I might be below. I might be being nice here, saying 20%.
Oh, you're being really nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's got it. They've had a couple runs. They had this experience last year. Experience means everything. It's unfortunate we're in the same position, not in a better position. Probably a little bit worse actually than last year. It's just the schedule's going to make it real hard. They're going to need some teams that are already in the playoffs to rest some guys. But yeah, so 20%. And I think, like you said, I think that's being really nice.
They are 7 points behind Ottawa, and Ottawa's played a game less. They are 3 points behind the Habs, and Montreal has played a game less, and Montreal has the tiebreakers on them. So the 3 points is really 4 and a game in hand. So I'm with you. Coach Nugent jumped in. Nice to see Nuge out there.
Nuge.
Another year out for the Wings. Mike, I would put it, and I think I'm being nice at 5%. And I think I'm being nice. I really
the 5. I mean, yeah. I mean, again, I'm still looking at the teams that are ahead of them, though you got to win probably 3 more games than the Habs. Mm-hmm. The Habs are still that young team. They could tank, even with it. That's where my 20%. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's where my 20% is right now. Especially watching them against Washington, just chase the puck last night. Detroit, they just chased the puck, and that's what they're going to be doing for a lot of these games against the better teams.
See, you know what? This is why you and I get along so well, because I know so many knuckleheads from our generation always wax poetically about how great the game of hockey was 30, 40 years ago. That was one of the dump and chase. You work so hard to get the puck, and then you're just going to get it up. You're just going to give it up and go chase it and chase the puck all night. How bleeping stupid is that, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't make sense to me. Ted said, watch out for Western Michigan and NC2A. Very damn good team. And flying under the radar as well. Very damn good team. All right, we got to get out of here. Mike, I can't believe we did an hour. I'm sorry. You got to go to bed. Todd's got to curse me. Listen, we'll talk to you guys. God bless you all. I'll do something tomorrow. In the meantime, we'll see you at the rink. Bye. Peace.
What the Puck with Sean Baligian. Executive produced by Sean Baligian and Todd Losey. Theme song, incidental music, and related sound effects are from Always Pushing Forward by Elliot Middleton. Engineering, mixing, and graphic design support provided by the Unsyndicated Podcast team. Don't forget to like and subscribe on all your favorite channels. While you're there, be sure to rate and review the podcast. Got something to say to Sean? Call the Unsyndicated hotline at 248-237-3257.